Biennial 2022. On behalf of the organizers and hosts, the University of Applied Arts, the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, Wiener Zeitung, and the European Cultural Center, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you very warmly to our third edition of our discussion series Opera Aperta, with the focus on art, digital humanism, and sustainability. Opera Aperta was created and initiated by Ruth Matthäus-Berr from the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight because of a serious private issue. Good luck, dear Ruth. Opera Aperta consists of 5 completed thematic blocks within the project of the Viennese Biennial Intra-Actions. Existence is not an individual matter. The installation at Palazzo Mora is the contribution to the Venice Biennial 2022 from the Center of Didactics of Art and Interdisciplinary Education that Ruth Matthäus-Berr is leading. Today's discussion, Art and Digital Humanism, will explore one of the central questions posed by the great German philosopher Immanuel Kant, one of the most important exponents of Western philosophy and one of the central Enlightenment thinkers. Will Kant's last question, what is man, soon be answered by a machine capable of learning? Digital technologies have fundamentally changed our world in the recent decades. Today's technology developments are opening unprecedented opportunities, but also very, very high risks. We will learn more in a few minutes. They challenge our society, are questioning our view of humanity, our values, and our agreements. But how will humanity be able to shape a transformation towards digital humanism? Who will shape the ethical guidelines for this, and who will have the control over the systems? One of the very big questions. Art could present this complex topic in a completely different approach, not only rationally, but also emotionally, asking questions or experiment. That's why we will have, in a tradition, at the end of the discussion, a performance from Gabriela Urrutia Reyes, who is one of the panelists. Thank you to be here. At this point, I would like to turn the floor over to Georg Rusecker. Georg Rusecker is from the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Georg is the overall curator of Opera Aperta. He is head of the Knowledge Transfer Center of the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. He has been and continues to be a contributor to European art and cultural projects. He is involved in impact research and organizes congresses in the creative scene with a convincing focus on thinking out of the box. Georg, it's great. Georg will lead today's discussion in his proven manner, and I can only say one, Georg, the floor is yours. The pleasure is hopefully ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. And welcome also from my side, dear guests, cooperation partners, and also the audience on the live stream. So, as you can feel, it's quite hot today in Venice. So if our speed is a bit slower as normal, I think it would be okay. And I'm very happy that we have the 2 panelists here, which is Irina Nallis. Irina Nallis is actually a transformation psychologist at the Christian Doppler Lab at the University of Technology in Vienna. And as well, Gabriela Rua Reyes, independent visual artist, architect, and designer from Nicaragua, living in Vienna. And we are very delighted to discuss with you the kind of complex issue of digital humanism, art, and sustainability. For this reason, we had a kind of workshop in the morning to talk about how can we bring this topic a bit closer to a common understanding how humans and human-made technology can save the world. Not an easy topic, I would say. And for this reason, we invite now both of the panelists for an opening statement to give us a little bit of an idea from what viewpoint they are entering this question. Irina, please start.
Thank you, Georg. Thank you, the audience. And I'm very happy to have this question as an opening way of giving some of the context. We're here in Venice. And I am so glad and grateful today I could go and see the Biennale, the Arte in the Giardini, so in the wonderful venue with all those amazing and of course a lot of discussed, a bit outdated concept of national pavilions. But altogether for me, I have to say it's always such a great pleasure to have this occasion to go there as a psychologist. I'm a trained psychologist. I hold a PhD in psychology. I work in psychology with people, but still art is to me already some sort of nourishment, always. I feel it like that. So I went there, and going there, I saw what I think many of you have experienced. You pass monuments, you go by some sites, and of course a lot of photos are being taken, and most of them today are selfies. And I was wondering, when did it stop that people ask you to, can you maybe take a picture of me and my girlfriend, me and my child, or just me because I'm traveling alone in front of this beautiful monument? And there was also this time of the selfie stick. I don't know if you remember it, because I didn't see any selfie sticks today. And again, I was thinking, because this is what I do. I do think about how people interact with technology, what does it do with them, and what does it do in the ways we interact with each other. And the selfie stick apparently is also gone. So I was like, aha, people don't ask other persons anymore, and they don't do the selfie stick to get a beautiful perspective, because apparently it's the filters they're using when they're having their photo taken of themselves by their hand with strange angles, kind of, something you would not have done a few years before. And I walked on, and finally I arrived at the beautiful Giardini. I entered the main room. And it was only, I think, 2 seconds I was in. There was a group of teenagers, maybe 20, but young people, 3 of them. First question they asked me was, can you please take a picture of the 3 of us in front of Il Sogno, the Milk of Dreams, Il Latte di Sogno, the name of this exhibition, of this biennial. And I was really deeply touched, because they were so beaming with joy. They were now up to go see art. And this excitement really kind of was what to me, and what was then also fulfilled during watching the exhibition, is maybe this way of art can touch people in ways that can bring back high hopes for humanity, that can bring back this kind of nourishing that it's between us, these interactions that make us feel alive. And maybe also risk something, but it's beautiful, it's new, you don't have to feel ashamed to ask somebody. It's okay, we can expect more from each other than from technology. Citing Sherry Turkle, the media sociologist and psychologist you're also familiar with. And yeah, this is a bit of the background I wanted to give. It's about the high hopes you can still maintain in people, actually, that it's not all over yet. And even if sometimes you're sad because the children are all lost in the screens, they also sometimes lift their eyes.
Thank you very much. So maybe we'll follow up with you, Gabriela.
Yeah, and thank you first also for the introduction, and also thank you to Professor Ruth and the Centrum also for the invitation, for being here. I really appreciate it. I think also it's important to say that I'm speaking also as an artist and designer with the background that I have, and that with the privilege that I have access to education, because digital humanism is a topic that it really it will really change depending on the person, no? And I think it's important that we put it also on the table, that what I think could be utopic, this topic, for me might not be for you. So I think it's nice to have this conversation here. Also, I think my statement, I see it in a very positive light, I would say. For me, would be the accessibility to technology and knowledge is really easier now. and what we were discussing also in the previous day, is to the many platforms that are open in order for you to express or communicate an idea. And you don't really have the big infrastructure or the biggest technology, is really, really powerful. And I think also corporations know this, no? That's why this is the fear of controlling all these communications and digital enterprises, because people could get even more powerful, could be empowered. And I think that's where but there is a lot of accessibility to knowledge. And this is what I would rescue and I would like to keep.
Thank you very much. So I think we already got some kind of glimpse what direction you're heading, and preparing the first question for you is also warming a bit up, since we are talking a lot about complexity and creativity and future, and we are facing actually challenging times. I don't want to really now count everything what is around us, which is bringing pressure, bringing joy as well. But on the other hand, I think as we look into the future, we understand more and more that creativity and maybe artistic thinking can solve some problems, or can at least look at problems in different ways. Besides the great empowerment and accessibility through technology and digital media, on the other hand, there is a big fear or anxiety in society to maybe also the pictures we have seen and all what technology can do if it's getting out of hand or if it's getting out of control. So, I mean, in the contrary, maybe we can elaborate a bit on what kind of constructive way we can find to interact, to cooperate with technology, and how can we, in this sense, as I said before, create something good as well for us, but as well for the planet.
Maybe I should already get into this. So I think it's really the general question of programmed, so program something or being programmed. And this question, which has been raised already by the media theorist Douglas Rushkoff, I think it's really something to keep in mind, because it is something that is already going on. So the way we interact with technology, the way it is tracking our thoughts, feelings, and steps, this kind of thing has already entered our ways of thinking. And it can also sometimes be critically seen as a very strong way of censorship of individual behavior, because as before, when it was the ideal that thoughts are free, which is such a central step and stone for every democracy, that you have your free thoughts, your free ways of expression, they are still here in a way. But on the other hand, people tend to watch themselves much more carefully. We have a lot of evidence around this, that even officially you're allowed to say whatever you want to say or think whatever you want to think, but you already are so trained in keeping track of yourselves and of others that you become more cautious. And cautiousness is a good thing, not to mistake me. And if we want to save our living together on this planet, cautiousness, care is super important. Yet again, it's not helpful if we need to be courageous, if we need to step out of this zone of bad, good, of judging the whole time. And to bring it into the picture, what I'm trying to explain here now is the computers, these that we are programming and should not program us, they are working binary, 0, 1, 1, 0, black, white, yes, no, a lot of them. This is not how human brains work. This is not how imagination should work. And this is why it is definitely one of the skills that we should develop further, to be more tolerant against or for the ambiguity, for the uncertain, for the unsure and insecure moments of our lives, because we are humans, we can imagine different ways of doing things. And so this is really the moment where I would say the transformative literacy skills that we need for the future, 21st century skills, they have to also be around these issues of, yeah, it's okay not to know all the answers yet, but try, be courageous, and really also know that it might be a failure, but that's okay if you move on.
Mm-hmm.
I would add on, yes, I think we could really interact with creativity, with an open mind as well. I think we really have two decisions to make. It's either we really adapt to the circumstances that we have to accept that technology will even grow further, to expand, and we really adapt to it, or we really neglect it. And then this could be a little bit more challenging, because then to neglect it is also bring it that you are not going to the next stage of society, and this could impediment that you have a voice, could put you in a very vulnerable position. I think it's really important to accept that this is moving forward. I was reading an article, I think it was published 3 days ago. It was from Harvard Report. And let's put it this way. There is an algorithm by artificial intelligence that is saying that by breathing, it could recognize who could have Parkinson. And I think that's it's really important to keep, it could really help us to prevent some things, to act with measurements. And with this algorithm, it could also say, for example, who is going to have like a deeper impact in Parkinson. I would like also to give another example. Also, we were working with projects with Ruth on disability. And now is, for example, we interact in a very direct way. People who doesn't have a leg or who doesn't have an arm also have implemented the prosthetics. Yeah. And I mean, this is, of course, an ethical thing. There is the ambiguity between this. But then, and they are called, some of them, some teams, Olympic teams, for this example, they call themselves superhuman, no? They embrace this having part of technology within their bodies. Other cultures, they might feel a little more ashamed of it. I think it's really interesting how this is already having this interaction between what is a machine, what is a human. And also, I think, of course, we need to debate what is ethical, because there could be also a data between this technical part of the body. So that's also a question we need to discuss, as to put it in the air. But as long as we use it in a way to adapt to the actual circumstances that also environment and the societies are giving us, I think we could really take a lot of advantage and enhance the capacities that we can do as humankind.
Interesting that you as well refer both to a way of a kind of very short but intensive historical element, that technologies are around, but especially digital technologies are not around that long. And in kind of exploring these different elements and trying things out, for sure, we all know this comes a lot from military technology. There was a lot of money taken into it to solve problems which haven't been foreseen, because some developments have really getting out of hand. But I think I'm a bit elaborating on the fact that there have been tremendous changes in how we do healthcare, how we do medical care, how we can analyze or treat people, or how we can create software and hardware elements to observe ourselves, as you pointed out. And I mean, a kind of critical question to you as well is, what does this kind of self-observation, is there some, so to say, clear vision of what this kind of self-observation, what kind of society does it create? And I'm asking this because in a way we want to connect this panel with the term, or with the idea of sustainability in a way, how is it working in relation to the planet we are living on? Because first of all, for sure we have been thinking about how can we enhance ourselves, our brains, our bodies, our looking further, jumping higher, driving faster. And how does this interrelate in a way, because I believe there is coming up a new mindset to kind of take it for a better sense as well to save the earth?
I would hope so, if I can say something, because there is one super interesting stream to me in this idea of the optimization, which I don't think can help us at all. And let me please elaborate on that. It's really this moment that this whole navel gazing, this whole spending your time looking for your blood measures, your steps, your how you look. I mean, this is why it's also been termed the narcissistic epidemic of our times. It's really a way of, again, isolating people. It's again a way, and I say again because this is something that is going on for 40 years. It has been termed there is no such thing as a society. But there's a lot of problem in that, because if we don't feel connected to a society, and if we don't have the mindset to see other people as valuable as ourselves, but just take the time for our own well-being, it becomes a hyper-individualistic game, which is certainly not the game that we're actually in. It's a wicked game, which means that if we as humanity want to be on this planet for a longer time and peaceful as possible and happy as possible, there really needs to be aspects that go much beyond the me, which open up a lot more space for the we. And I really would say this kind of consumerist attitude, which now is reflected in all this, I take care of myself, which has gone to extreme by Elon Musk and co, who go to the space and who send their brains to neural links and to want to live forever. They have fear of dying. Yeah, okay, everybody has. Memento mori. This is part of human progress, development, and life. And I would really say less fear, more action and more interaction, again, to come also to the name of the exhibition Ruth is curating. It's really one of those ways that we should actively overcome. Spend less time with yourself. Really, it's, I think, super wholesome.
Yeah, to add on also on this, I think it's really important. It's a really important question, the question of the self, because I also see this subject will affect as well the identity, no? Because now we have, for example, we have physical times, digital times, and now we are going to a virtual augmented reality times, no? For example, I have my physical identity that I think I portray myself as a certain person, but then maybe in the digital, do we portray it, or maybe we want to be seen as a certain way of my identity or my extended identity. And I wonder if this is going even virtual and not augmented reality, what would be my identity when I can be whoever I want to be, in the place I want to be, sense whatever I want to feel in this augmented reality. And yeah, I don't really know how it's going to work then in the collective when we have so many layers merged of identities, no? It's really interesting. Of course, it's a lot of challenge, because of course with digital humanism, what we need to bring is the human in the center and prioritize what makes us human, to humanize the whole thing, no? So of course this is challenging, how the different identities of the three platforms of reality are going to merge.
I can just add something on the identity part, because as a psychologist, of course, this is the central starting point. But I always believe that it's important to look for the inner possibilities, to look for not only the vulnerabilities of the individual and the one fixed identity, but always look for progress, for help, for development, and having this perspective that identity can be a great stabilizing factor for you, but it can also be something you play with. And there's really, like with design thinking, for instance, those creative techniques where you start prototyping, looking for solutions step by step, and maybe learning from the feedback how to proceed. This is actually, you could do also with your identity. There's literature on identity work and play. And it's funny that in days like ours, where identity is such a contested topic, which has the tendency to be always very fixated, I would really love to again see more of the possibilities to grow. If I have been like that several months or years ago, or structurally constrained by some aspects of my identity, really we have to acknowledge this. And then what is ways to adapt, to change, to play, again, to play the change, with identity.
Maybe I dig a bit deeper, because I think it's actually becoming quite interesting that we are talking basically about relationships.
Yes.
And maybe in this digital humanism, or in this bipolarity between humans and machines, there have been developed a lot of ideas which basically, I'm just coining Terminator or something like that, wouldn't say, first of all, that this is a good relationship. It's more like, there is and maybe also if you ask most of the people where they want to have the robots, they always answer on the moon. They don't want to have them in their blood or micro machines somewhere around. So in a way, there is some kind of basic fear about that. But on the other hand, it also connects, especially in this kind of digital network-driven world, a lot of new relationships, not only between humans, which are connected over long distances and networks, but also relationships to machines, which are becoming something like enabling or enhancing algorithms to experience, as you said. And I think in this sense, I want to focus or trigger the moment of artistic interventions, because very often artists have been as hackers, they never have been always called artists. So sometimes they have been just been hackers, nerds, and people who just did really weird stuff with technology. And out of that, there came kind of a perspective shift that we can use it maybe differently. And I think this is a very interesting momentum, which should never stop, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of experimenting, exploring, but also kind of never take something for granted. So just say it is like it is. So we can change things.
Yeah.
It's kind of human condition in this sense. So the question directly goes in this artistic potential in developing new technological or as well digitalization ideas.
I think I see art as a really strong platform to really reclaim spaces, no? And if spaces in this time means digital, I also see art is a platform to reclaim this digital. I would see art as also as we can use art as to give a statement. We can use art to make a provocation. And as you also were saying, it could trigger something within your feelings that could also make you to act, or at least you react, or you become aware on to this is really causing a problem. This is really causing the loss of empathy. This is really causing the lack of solidarity between countries, and you can really tackle really big issues of the world really by just provoking, no? And I think this is the job of also of art if somebody really wants to go into taking some actions. Or also, for example, I want to say, I was also watching a performance by, there is a researcher in the MIT, the Media Lab, and she was doing an experiment. She was trying to that the algorithm recognized her face, no? But she's Afro-descendant, and then the algorithm was not really recognizing her face. It was blank. And then she had to wear a mask, a white mask, and then the algorithm recognized the face expressions, no? And then, of course, this is really traumatizing because, okay, who is really programming this algorithm first to begin with, and where are they coming from? But then she reacted towards it, and then she made a performance as well. She did a presentation, and then in the performance she was doing a poem. She was saying a poem, and then the poem was called, I think, if I'm not wrong, Am I Not a Woman? And this was something about towards the algorithm, no? That to the machine and to the people who are really programming this. And I think that was really beautiful, it was really strong, and it really provoked something, no? That am I not a woman? And I think that's really, and this is also maybe the point that art could do.
I can, from the perspective of a psychologist, again, say what I believe in the art world and this reclaiming of space that you just mentioned. So this way of making use of whatever it is in the cyberspace or in the physical space or wherever you are, just dreaming or doing things or having, interactions, again, relationships with moments that have not been there before and maybe are not for some certain use. And this, I believe, also helps in developing those kind of transformative skills, of those future literacy skills, because, as I mentioned before, one of those critical issues of our times is that with the great and many problems we're having, it's not one solution. So we really also need to overcome this very quick judgmental way of looking at things. So as I mentioned before, we are always being rated ourselves and ranked ourselves with all the scoring in the devices we carry around. But also we are very much trained to also look at everything from the perspective of numbers. And art, apart from the big art market behind it, it's a different topic, but there's numbers involved too. I'm not too romantic here, but it's a way of looking at things that don't provide a one clear answer. And having this as some sort of training ground, being confronted with things that have not a clear explanation, they don't have a manual, they don't have a yes or no, a right or wrong, a number on it, is, I also believe, this kind of interaction that we need for the future. Have more of those confusing moments, maybe.
Brings me to the point that we had actually now 2 really tremendous days doing workshops on several topics. We see here an installation which was based on your workshop where we talked about utopian understanding, dystopian understanding of the world, but also having a vision of the future of Venice. And I mean, what always makes it very clear immediately if you're working together with other people that your perspective is always shifted. I mean, working on something alone sometimes is a very concentrated and also needed element to kind of manifest your own understandings, wish, and as well your learnings. But then in the exchange and again in kind of working together or co-create something, everything gets questions in a way, or it gets not only questioned, it also shifts your perspective on how others see things. So, and in this working together, for sure, there is some frustration involved always because it's not like you actually wish. But on the other hand, it's a very important learning element. And I think if we look into this kind of co-creation elements and also in these ways of how could we involve diverse groups and people which are maybe not so close to the information, not so close to the decision making. I mean, we have a lot of standards which are driven by a small group of people who define it as a standard or norm, and how to include or how to get a better understanding of working together. I mean, we just did here in Venice, and this is this special moment that you create not only a working form, you have also a very safe space of doing that, because we are not an institution here. It's more or less a really experimental space. And what we realized is that maybe you can not reenact the whole thing in your home country, because the whole condition of working together, the diversity of people you are meeting is different. It's differently selected. And in this sense, I also want to ask in your direction, what kind of potentials do you see in learning or experimenting environments like that, where art is for sure a very core element, but it connects to so many other disciplines and issues, and as well challenges, heat, or whatever what we have today.
Yeah, or to quote a pop singer, dear Miami, you're the first to go, disappearing under melting snow. This is Roisin Murphy from the electropop band Moloko, but in fact she also could have written this about Venice. Dear Venice, you're the first to go, disappearing under melting snow. And as you said, there is this special context of meeting here. And when we were working on issues as survival, actually, which was one of the topics of the workshops, which are part of this series, it's really this memento mori, this moment of you are confronted with death in a way. In Venice, I guess many people have had these impressions before, and it's, I think, not a coincidence that many of the famous books or films on Venice have death as the central topic. And this way of, again, kind of overcoming fear by approaching it with beauty or with confusion or sit with strangers, I might again say this is those kind of, it's a training ground, but maybe it's a training ground and not a trauma. And it's a moment of growth. And these kind of situations that we had, and we had really kind of annoying situations in our workshops. We were trying to be efficient together as a group. And we were failing. I mean, should I tell now what we did?
Maybe give us a little bit of insight, because it's really interesting for the audience what kind
okay,
of feeling and what was the framework.
Yeah, I will try to give you a short description of a moment in the workshop, which was titled Survival. We were not such a large group, and the introduction was very clear. We had to lower a stick. How difficult can this be? Lower a very lightweight stick. We had to put our fingers in front of us. We were aligned in front on the both sides of the stick and just had to go down, which was an amazing metaphor, I believe, of the amount of problems we're having. It's very, very high, those levels, and we need to lower them. And we were also instructed to think of this lowering also of the multitude, the many, many different movements we need to take to solve the problems. Do you believe it or not? We were not able as a group to lower it, and it felt so frustrating. First, we had to do it with eyes closed, then with eyes open. With eyes open, it was a bit better, but I have to say creative, collective efficacy, as a psychologist would call it, was not in place. We were going crazy, people like me and you especially. We were trying to trick the things and pull it down, and we were thinking, and again, I might have this impression, not myself alone, and it's not only within the game it happens. You are here in this world, you read the news, you hear about the problems we're having, and you again look at how actually we are behaving, and it feels a lot like, really? Do they still not understand what is going on here? Does really still nobody see what we have to do? And this is how it felt when we were like not able to lower it. And if we were lowering it too fast on one side, it would go up again. So this interconnectedness, this systemic thinking actually, which was in place there, was very interesting to see. And I believe, again, an eye and heart opener that we can only do it together, but we need to be patient. We need to, I don't know.
Yeah. This uncommon commons, right?
Yeah.
Because of believing that everything works out if everybody's on the same page,
Yeah.
shows in a very small experimental setup with a couple of people. And we are not talking a society. We just said a workshop setting is not working out. So in a way, there is frustration. There is for sure something that you try to, and if you're not able to talk and to explain, so in a way, it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
But we had a second experiment with your installation. I want to come here now, and I want to invite somebody from the audience, because here we have these kind of future questions about dystopian, utopian world, about the future of Venice. And maybe somebody from the audience wants to join us and just pick one of these questions and read it out loud with a microphone we will maybe provide for you, and just we can go on with the discussion. Oh yeah, please.
I just need to pick one question, or?
Yeah, you can, as ever you want. I mean, you see, I think there are 3 different strings of thoughts, 3 different colors, and I'm not telling you now what is what, because you can actually look at that and just pick one and read it out loud to us.
Okay, I get one. I have one. How can we provide proper education for future generations?
All right, cool. Proper education, future education. Not an easy one, I would say. So I'm directly giving over to the panelists. What would you say? I mean, there are many ways to answer that.
Yeah, and it would really help to finally integrate some of the knowledge we have of pedagogy studies in real life educational system plans, curricula, because really, like, for instance, there's one very influential theory on basic psychological needs. It's the self-determination theory of motivation. Okay, this is not an easy word, but this way of looking of what is it that make people tick? Where does the drive come from? And it's about relatedness, and it's about autonomy too. And it's, of course, about acquiring competences. And what we see today is, okay, the competence part is here in a way, but sometimes in a way that also feels really ridiculous. I look at what the people now in school learn, and it's more or less the same curricula as I had 30 years ago, which is for some parts of the canon may be right, but for most of it, it's not. But what is really undermined are all the other needs, all the needs of working together, collaborating, critical thinking, constructing, being creative. Those kind of things are really still not at the center page. And the other thing I would say, it's also in the name of the center which Ruth is heading, Ruth Matthäus Bär, it's the interdisciplinarity. And working together as T-shirt people. So again, it's necessary. You form your expertise, you dig deeper, you take your time in learning things. These environments should be provided, but also to open up and be able to communicate with others and not be so much afraid of what the others would think of you or see or say. And those kind of more fearless ways of interacting needs more different rooms too, by the way, the way schools look like. The new ones are more or less okay, but the old ones, and this majority is not how learning is working.
Yeah, I think I'm really with you. I think I was also thinking collaborative, participatory, interdisciplinary, because I think if we think, for example, we need to create even spaces that are going to be even more technological. For example, my profession as an architect, maybe it won't be sufficient. It will be maybe we will need some programmers. We will also need some people who are game developers, because now the way we see a space could be also, it will be completely digitalized, let's say, with the metaverse. And would it be enough, or will we have architects for the physical world or architects for the digital?
Circular economy experts who do the counting with different carbon footprint for architecture would also help. But now this is not trained in schools, in architecture schools, still not today. It's not part of the curriculum.
So I think it's I completely understand, because I think some institutions are really far behind, and what I also want to point out is that the thing we really need to see education and technology. We are producing technology, and the nation or the collective or the institution that is not really providing the technology is going to be really far behind, and this will be really challenging, because this will be the new economy as well, no? And not only you are dealing, let's say, for example, with some countries, they are dealing with environmental crisis, also extreme poverty. You will also deal that you are really far behind in technology, so it's really another layer of the complexity of disadvantage. And if the curriculum is also not really keep it up, it's really damaging for the whole, no?
Yeah, and when I'm listening to you, I feel as well that maybe this whole shift between there's always a teacher and there's always one who is being taught. Yeah. And maybe sometimes it needs a more open environment, or more a kind of collective thinking and experiencing, and not so much, okay, this is the topic, you have to learn, this is the technology, how to use it. So thinking out of the box, in a way, also having the confidence that you are not only the receiver of information, and if you use the information right, this is then a future learning environment. I would actually say maybe it's the opposite. Maybe sometimes the youngsters should be giving us lectures on how things they feel. If I look at young kids, how they work in or interact with mobile phones, I mean, we cannot imagine that within certain seconds or minutes, they understand how this works.
And I would also add that there's really some inner development, some psychological growth that needs to be nourished. And there are some experiments, some schools where, for instance, mindfulness-based interventions or like meditations are being part now of the curricula. We really have sound evidence on what it does for the brain, for interconnectedness, for also performance-related measure, not only well-being, if it's too soft-sounding for some of the teachers' ears. It really helps if people find different ways to listen to each other and also to themselves. And I would really say that there's an interesting initiative out there. It's called Inner Development Goals in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, which point out to those psychological, social, relational skills that can be trained. Again, it's not like you're shy and you will be shy forever, sorry for you. there are ways to integrate shyness in the world, for instance.
Okay, I actually would go for a second round of this audience interaction. I think it went quite well. Is there another person who wants to pick some question for us out of the, I would say the question tree, but it's not true. It's the question installation.
Ye- So, what will I do if Venice disappear?
Oh, can you say it again, please?
What will I do if Venice disappear?
What will you do if Venice disappears? What a question. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. What will I do when Venice disappears? This is also a very personal question, I would say, in a way, because everybody, I guess, has a very specific relation to Venice. Maybe sometimes we are just visitors, but I guess here are people in the room who are living here. So, yeah, let's try to answer this in a, I would say, in a personal way. What will you do when Venice disappears?
I should be sad, and I should be able to be sad. Not to feign happiness, not to feign optimism for this moment, because it would be like in this song, first to go, disappearing. This would be a tremendous loss. And a loss of souls, a loss of place, a loss of culture. And I believe sitting with this sadness is not the end of the story, but it should be also some of the empathy kind of training or skills that you can also develop. That, of course, first we should be activated not to have it happen, to prevent this to happen. But if ever it happened, there should be sadness and not this business as usual kind of attitude, which we also see sometimes in times like ours. Like, yeah, we cannot always talk about the crisis. No, we should definitely talk about how to get out of it. But it's ways of feeling also the deeper and more darker moments. Yeah.
Yeah, with this workshop, I remember there was a following question with this one. It's really provoking, this question, because then what would I do if Venice disappeared? Then, but where would I go? You know, where would the people go? And then this goes to other layers. Then I have another second question for myself: if such a strong and beautiful place like Venice disappeared, then what happened with Central America is also, you know, in the same. I mean, are we already gone? Because if Venice is already gone, then what happened with some countries in Latin America? And then I also reflect in another topic, because then, okay, but then if people have to relocate, if Venice disappear, where do they go? And also, will machines then control, or technology control who can relocate to somewhere else? For example, talking about migration, is technology controlling who can have access to migrate to certain areas and who cannot? Facial recognition will say you are allowed to enter here, you are not allowed to enter here. And I started to it's really provoking question, no? And goes to topic of relocation, migration. I would say like this way: what would happen with the rest if Venice already disappeared?
Yeah, in my sense, it raises as well this immediate response to, we have to take care that this is not happening, right? So it's not a question about does it or does it not, but I mean, within that question, there is so much power,
call to action,
sadness, call to action in a way that we, somehow I can feel it. That what can we actually do? And now maybe this shifts our whole discussion a bit in this way of climate care. How can we care about or care better about the actual problems we have? But also, how can we create a better balance as humans between this economical understanding of things and also this ecological understanding of things? So how can we take care about bringing these things in balance? And I think digital humanism as well tells us that technology is humankind made. So we kind of created it to do something with it. In a way, maybe we can talk now a bit more, how can as well artistic thinking, but also interdisciplinary frameworks as the Center for Interdisciplinary Education shows, bringing people together, working together on issues, working together on new ways of thinking and educating people. How can we really use that power? And I want to call it now power, because it's an imaginative power of people to think about the right things, not about the war. So thinking about that Venice is not disappearing because we had it as an example. What can we do here? I mean, this is really, there's an urgency.
I would say it's really important, and art, for example, is a platform also to reflect, no? And I think reflect together in a group, as we did in the workshop, I think it's really strong because it's not only my perspective, it's the perspective also of people who are from Venice, or also perspective who are people from Vienna, and people who were just passing by. I think reflecting on this, making a provocation, even if it's a tiny impact, it's already an impact. And an impact can also then help or raise some questions, and questions can then go to legislations, because now I feel there is also lack of legislation of what is human rights. Human rights and technology, because they were created without this technology. So maybe they are not really updated. So maybe we really need to. But this was provoked by a question, no? And then this is the tool that art could do.
And I'm happy that you mentioned the word impact, because impact has a positive connotation. And I also believe there's money to be talked about. How can actually investments be directed in ways to make positive impact? And I believe this whole way of looking at economy is less from a perspective of output, just more is probably more of the same problem. But more of the impact, what does it do in a social and sustainable, just way? This is interesting, and I believe also in the word impact is somehow a problem, because it's this push, it's this physical reaction, and it's the Anthropocene actually we're supposed to live in. And Anthropocene, so the times that now the climate, the ways the planetary boundaries are being used and changed by us humans, this is what this whole concept of the Anthropocene is about, is mostly watched or discussed from the perspective of a problem. This is the problem we're in. The Anthropocene is the kind of the diagnosis of a problem. But I believe we could also do some perspective switching here from the way of looking at it. Yes, we as humans, you mentioned it, we can do something. We were able to destroy things and to make it worse. Okay, because there's a power in our actions. Let's please redirect some of it. And this idea of designing the Anthropocene, of getting us people more back into the action steps. And I believe also it's necessary in a way that we believe in each other more, in our capabilities, that we as humans, as humanity, we can change for good. We're able to. There's sound evidence of this. We're able to not destroy our living sphere. Maybe let's do more of it, yes.
Very good and interesting point to also shift the idea from there is the purpose, there is the need, there is the pressure, to something which maybe can be called a desire-driven approach, which is the desire to be in contact with the planet, not to destroy it, to having this creative power, to having the ideas, and as well, it doesn't feel so much as, I mean, the urgency is there, but if we are standing up every morning with the fear that the planet is not there anymore, I mean, or Venice is gone, it might be not the biggest power moment that you're waking up and you're kind of having the inspiration of really going out there doing so. So maybe that would be as well a functional level to create environments and as well to transfer skills, because you mentioned before the 21st century skills, and in the 21st century skills, for sure it's clear that everybody maybe has to learn how to read and how to do math. But there is so much complexity thinking, critical thinking, artistic problem solving, looking at things from a different angle, somehow as well cooperating, working together and not working together in cooperation, just saying, we know we have to do it together because one person cannot solve the problem. Really kind of, as you mentioned it with the lowering the bar metaphor, that somehow coming closer together and maybe having as well not only empathy for the other humans, so also for the systems we created to make it for a good, to create something which can help.
And enjoy it, and really create some sort of hope circuit, because action comes not out of fear. And if it does, it's this kind of action that is in a tunnel vision, maybe sometimes even translated to a missile that is very focused narrowly on destroying again. And this is not the action that we need for this world. It's an open vision, and fear, definitely, that's a biological thing, restricts the vision. And we need the open vision, the open perspectives for the action.
Coming back to technology, so yeah.
And I just want to add on creativity, because we were discussing, it's also very fascinating how creative and explore with your imagination what you can do also within this topic. And I think that's also we could keep it, no? How can we raise the bar with the creativity and become a child again also, and to explore more into positive aspects of this topic.
Yes.
Maybe going back the last round to the technology issue.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is mainly designed. It has a
Yes.
purpose and there's always somebody
Yeah.
who has an idea for what this will help. So, and this ideation process, I would say, is also a very creative process, because it's nothing there yet, or you're trying to connect something, or nowadays we are talking entrepreneurship, combine existing resources in new ways, and in a way this is entrepreneurial or innovative. And I mean, especially technology-driven approaches very much live from this innovational moment. So now, bringing back the question to an artist and to a psychologist, how can we create as well a mindset or even a mind shift that what is the important thing to invent? What's the important things to do? Maybe you can understand where the question is hitting, because we are still talking sustainability, taking care of the planet, and having more caretaking elements.
Yeah.
Just quick on the digital humanism word again here, maybe as one way of looking at it. Digital humanism as an initiative, which is also set down between many computer scientists, some social scientists, and defined some sort of a manifesto. And this manifesto starts with the saying by Tim Berners-Lee, the system is failing. And the many things it addresses which are failing are mainly in relation to the fact that there has been this sort of techno-solutionism. Things that can be programmed will be programmed, and we don't think about power questions, we don't think about justice, we don't think about ecology, we just do it because some, and we know it, there's a lot of bias. I'm not a woman, you mentioned your this artwork, where actually things are being programmed that are not helpful. And to turn this around, I think the common good and looking at what is our individual, but also the societal well-being, the fairness aspects, and of course always with the sustainability of the planet in mind, would really stop a lot of the projects are being calculated at this very moment, eating up on so much carbon dioxide you cannot even imagine it, just because machine learning is now a thing, and we do a lot of face recognition instead of looking of ways for preventing Venice to sink, and really redirect the money for what we are actually doing with the research. What is innovation? Is it just because it's new, or is it maybe helpful for the common good? And I think to redirect this question would help a lot, and redirect resources.
Yeah, I think with an open mind as well, I would reply, and also to set priorities, no, and to set priorities, and to really see it as a nation's collective people here in this panel, and to really say, okay, if we are really lacking something, then we really need to demand it. We really need to take some actions, and put. And within this demanding, always remember that with digital humanism is to put the human in the center, to humanize the values, no, to call it this way, the empathy, the solidarity, the collaborative work, interdisciplinary work, working in teams is what makes us human, and I think that will be the mindset for going forward with this topic. Yeah.
Still sounds to me it's a long way to go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's again this kind of not so constructivistic way of thinking. A long way to go doesn't mean that it has to be a boring way.
Exactly.
It could be a good way.
Yeah.
It maybe just doesn't have to be said in this way of, okay, long way to go immediately associates with we are in the beginning of something, but we already, I think, have shifts in discussions. I think what we have seen here, especially in the last 2 days, for me, it's always super surprising how people work together from different fields, especially under this topic of Opera Aperta with these different topics we have, digital humanism, social impact, democracy, and always connected with art, shows so many new ways of how to interact together and to kind of co-design or co-develop ideas which we can bring back in our home countries, which we can bring back in our discursive clusters. And in this sense, I'm really very happy that this seems as a very kind of constructive way of dealing with this, so to say, contemporary issues of societal challenges. And maybe we can somehow make a last round in kind of subsuming a bit of a learning as well, and discursive elements for you, what you maybe take home with you to share with others.
I would actually again look at Douglas Rushkoff, who I already cited. His work on program or being programmed is now under the title of Team Human. Actually, much of the work he is a media theorist working a lot into the field of activism and technology. He calls it Team Human. And you mentioned just one thing that I will bring in as the last point today. There is already a lot of thinking going on, a lot of transformation research being done, a lot of progress that is not only monetary but societal progress. There is a lot of change making going on actually. And if there are moments, and they are those moments where you feel alone, where you feel like the people still did not understand how we need to lower the problems, Douglas Rushkoff has one interesting and very easy tip. Look for the others, find the others. We are not alone together. Again, Sherry Turkle, who said, be aware, we are not alone. Find the others and then find the courage to continue doing this beautiful living thing, which is called, being here.
Life.
Yeah.
What I take with me, I would say, is the importance of education. Because as has always been, education is the key for successful. And it's not only, because then we will have who is empowered, who is really dominated by others. And institutions, of course, has a big role on it. And so access to education and cultural technology, it would be the priority, to make it accessible for everybody.
And it now is the moment in my brain where I think about Ruth. Because Ruth always, she's the one who brings the thing together, and she set up this whole thing. And now I realized she would be very happy. And it's very sad that she's not here, but in a way, she would be very happy that we had this discussion today. And it will go on with Opera Aperta, so I hope that she will be on here again. And I think this is the moment where I hand over to Wolfgang Renner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for you.
Thank you for the discussion. Now, to follow the tradition, we start with a performance, as announced, from Gabriela Urrutia Reyes. She is an independent artist from South America, from Nicaragua, and now her focus, where she lives, is in Vienna. Her performance is called Esperando, which means in English, waiting for. Her instruments, as I may explain, are two instruments. One is a metronome, as you will soon see, and the other one is the sound created by her by a computer. She's reflecting the experiences she had in here, and especially on the crystallization point Vienna, here at the European Cultural Center. Dystopia, Utopia, Venice. Gabriela, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Waiting on. Waiting for. Waiting on. Waiting for. How long have you been waiting?
Welcome. The following number costs €1 and 20 cents per minute. The average waiting time is 17 minutes. Please hold.
Waiting on. Waiting for. How long have you been waiting? Why do you wait for? Espera. Espera. Waiting on. Waiting for.
The average waiting time is 17 minutes. Please hold.
3, 4. Just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is a decade. 1, 2, 3, 4. Time passes by. It will be over soon. Right? It must be over soon. 1, 2, 3.
Waiting for.
Or maybe tomorrow. Or in a
Waiting on.
week. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Why do you wait?
1,
Today.
2, 3, 4. It's just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mañana.
It is a decade. 1, 2, 3, 4. Time passes by.
The average waiting
It will be
time
over
is
soon.
17
Espera.
minutes. Please hold.
Waiting on. Waiting for. Espera. Waiting on. Waiting for. How long have you been waiting? Waiting on.
All our operators are currently offline. Thank you for calling. Goodbye.